welcome back to my April wrap-up. This past month, I read 17 or 18 books, one or the other. Due to the simple fact, I read a lot of books for a single video that is coming out really soon for you guys. I read Check Please, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which is the entire, story or whatever. Again, I read these last year. I know one of them made my top 10 of the year, and then also both of them have made quarterly top 10s as well, top 5s. And this is about a boy who ends up going off to college for a hockey thing, and he ends up joining a fraternity for hockey because he likes hockey, but he bakes a lot, and it's about this really cute romance between these two guys and this hockey team thing. It's really good. I highly recommend it. This is what the cover looks like. If you've not read them yet, they're so good. I enjoyed them so much. Both of them are 5, by the way. I love them. Now let's jump into the bigger overarching video, which I read for Heartstopper, which came out at the end of April. I've watched it 4 times now. I've reread Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Judge me if you will. Who knows how many times this is going to pop up on this year. This is my new go-to, if I'm in a really dark place or whatever. Mood books right now is Alice Oseman, specifically Heartstopper. I'm buying them all. I think I just ordered volumes 2 through 4. Yeah, that's where we're at in life. Heartstopper follows Nick and Charlie as they meet during their term. They end up becoming homeroom partners is what it's called here. It's form partners. I think it's what's called over in England. I'm not really sure how the scoring system works over there. And they end up becoming form partners, and Charlie ends up having a crush on Nick, and Nick might reciprocate those feelings. So I'll say. Obviously, it's a very popular Netflix TV show right now. So for that season 2 announcement, I'll continue watching it until it happens, and I'll continue watching it afterwards. So I read volumes 1 through 4 plus extra because I did go online and I read the Webtoon comic. I'm actually going to link one of those down below, if not in this video, then in the video that we're talking about this in. Then I continued on to read more Alice Oseman, specifically in the Heartstopper universe. I read this in the order that I was told. I talked about in that video specifically. But the next one I read was this winter, which I ended up giving a 4 out of 5, a 4 to 4.5 out of 5. I really like this winter. In the winter time after the events of Heartstoppers, I think it's volume 4 if I'm not mistaken. It could be partially into volume 5, but don't worry, there's no direct spoilers if you're all the way up to date with the current volumes for Heartstoppers in this book. Anything past this point does have spoilers for the relationship if you're not wanting to read those past the Heartstoppers graphic novels, just to give you a heads up. Well, except Radio Silence. Anyway, I liked it, so forth. Then I read Solitaire. Solitaire is still a mixed bag for me personally, which I feel is a very common thing from what I understand. Solitaire solves Tori Spring, which is Charlie Spring's sister, during her year 11 or something or those lines. She ends up discovering this group called Solitaire that is harassing her school and so forth. And it's that whole thing. Charlie and Nick are a huge part here. Some of the other characters in Heartstopper is also a big part here, but Hope. I just don't know how I feel. I really like Tori as a narrator, but the story itself, I don't really think held any ground until the last 30 or so percent. And it was a very big catalyst for other books that we're going to talk about, but I'm not really sure where my feelings lay. This is between a 3 and a 4, so I think I settled on a 3.5. I'm not sure what I put on Goodreads, to be honest with you, but it's somewhere in there, and I'm curious if I reread it, if my opinions will change, or if it's just going to stay the same, as I genuinely don't know, is where I'm at. Then I read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This follows Frances as she is obsessed with a podcast called Universe City, and it's run by someone called Radio Silence. The podcast itself is, I can't think of the words, both male or female, you don't really know. And she ends up drawing a whole bunch of art for it in secret. And it follows the events of Solitaire. I don't want to spoil Solitaire. There's a direct spoiler for Solitaire, so I do recommend reading Solitaire first and then this one. I would like to mention all these books have a lot of trigger warnings. Please do look it up. There's some really severe things that happen, especially Radio Silence with some really dark places that I did not expect it to go. I cried during Radio Silence. I saw myself and one of my really close friends between Frances and Aled. And the relationships here are just really beautiful. I think the biggest takeaway for me personally for all Alice Oseman is the fact how queer it is and how loving and accepting that queerness is. There's obviously homophobia and that type of thing. It's not like it's Schitt's Creek where it's in its own bubble and that shit doesn't exist. Now, it does exist, but it's so overtly queer, which I just absolutely adore. Radio Silence was a 5-star. I think it took until like the last like 20 to 30% for me to settle on that, which is really odd for me. Normally I know within the first like 10% of a book what I'm going to be rating it. And it normally does not change. I've had a few books here recently throw me for a loop, and either they're lower or higher. Karen Slaughter seems to be a big one right now. But this one was also one of those ones where when I started, I was like, this could either be like a 1 or a 5. And it ended up being a 5. This is a new all-time fave. And I love this book with all my heart, like so dearly. So that's Radio Silence. The next one we have to get to is Nick and Charlie, which ends off this like video that I did. And this also has been a sense. Nick and Charlie follows Nick as he is going off to college and Charlie's like repercussions of going off to college. I thought this was fine. I gave it a 4. I just didn't really see the point of it. I liked having more information for Nick and Charlie, but I think I would much more have personally just have waited for them to get to that point inside the graphic novels. I can also understand where Alice might be like, I don't know if I'm going to write that far. I don't really know how long Heartstoppers is going to go on for, much longer than what it is. Who knows? It could get revamped and it could go on for 10 more years. We don't know, so I can also like have respect for this. I'd also like to mention that there are some things in here some people took a note to due to the glamorization of the romance. I don't want to go into too more deeper than that, but if you know, you know. Think about those opinions in that video, not here, because they contain spoilers. Oh Lord. I read this poetry collection, which follows an Asian American man who is on the LGBTQ. I think he's gay. I don't really know if it's specifically said, to be honest with you. And it's about his relationship and his heritage and his family and stuff. Sorry, I just got scared. My phone just like literally tried to drop on my head. I'm a little on edge. The book was phenomenal. There's a few poems, especially towards the end here, that I really, really loved. This was a really interesting discovery for me because I don't tend to enjoy poetry collections that are solely based on like a memoir style poetry. I used to enjoy those so much. But as I have gone to poetry to learn more about cultures, history, just life lessons, I tend to enjoy the poetry that's much more theoretical. But I think there's a lot of poems here that I directly related to, even if they weren't directly talking about me, especially the gay poems, sexually gay poems. There's a few in here that hit me real hard. It was a 5 out of 5. It's in my top books of the quarter so far. We'll see if it makes it to the end of this little battle that my books do. But yeah, all right, I'm just gonna go down the order that they're over here because these are the last ones. Next one is The Last Night at the Telegraph Club, by Melinda Lowe. I wanted to love this with my whole entire heart. I like what it stands for. I learned about something I didn't know, especially about this like little place. I like the representation a lot here. This is about an Asian American female who happens to be a lesbian, and it's about her sexual awakening, her sexual desire and cravings, growing up in a pretty religious but also family that doesn't really support that, and also into a school system that doesn't support that because it takes place in the 50s specifically. It's also about her falling in love with a white woman, or a white girl, which I felt like is also a pretty excellent commentary. I just don't like period pieces. I have a lot of respect for them. This author obviously did a lot of research to make sure that this was very accurate, I'm assuming. In my opinion, really paid off. But I was kind of bored through a lot of it, and it just wasn't really clicking for me personally. I thought it was really meh, but I have a lot of respect for it, and if it's a 5 for you and you saw yourself, I think that's just the most important thing in the whole entire world. I don't think I hated it. I just thought it was okay. It was a 3 for me personally. I wish it was a 5. I wish it was higher than a 3, but I still think a 3 is a really good score. Then I read one of my more interesting books of the month, and that was Fight Club by Chuck Palmer. A lot of my friends on Goodreads, and also people I know in real life, love this book like to death. It reminded me a lot of Clockwork Orange. If you read Clockwork Orange, you might understand the pickup vibes here. Also, I knew this going into it, like 3 big things I remember from the movie from watching it like 10 years ago. The ending, the twist ending, the other aspect of the ending, and then a small little part that I didn't really think was actually a part of the book, which is a huge part of the book. And so knowing the ending, I actually read this through a different lens. If I would have not known the ending, I think I would have been really annoyed. I think I would have probably felt this was very queerbaity. Which is hilarious if you know. But if you don't know, you'd be like, why? What? I'll actually have a video talking about movie comparison between this and the actual adaptation that happened to be done by David Fincher, starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. Later on this month, where I'll dive into that more. And also, I'm curious to see what all things they kept the same. This is a very graphically detailed book about horrible, horrible, horrible people doing horrible, horrible, horrible things. It also reminds me of a lot of Moon Knight that's going on right now. I think there's a lot of similarities to that. Once again, there's also sequels to this, and I'm not doing that. You can have your sequel and eat it too, but I'm not reading it. And then lastly, I have another video coming out where I review this book, so I'm going to talk about it briefly, and that is The Recovery Agent by Janek Avongovich. This is one of the last books I read last month. This is about Gabrielle Rose as she is searching for a treasure from Sir Francis Drake. It's like an amulet or something like that, and there's this group of people who are going against them. I thought the cast of characters were really well done here. I thought the romance was pretty cute, and I thought the stakes were really, really high. My biggest problems was the writing for Janek Avongovich, and also the fact that it had like 19 red herrings in the last like 30 pages, which is extremely annoying. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it. It was a 4 out of 5 for me. It was exactly what I wanted, and I would deem this as a guilty pleasure specifically. 110% a guilty pleasure. And guys, those are the books that I read in April. And this thumbnail is gonna make you think I read nothing, and then the title is gonna be like, 18. Let me know what your guys' favorite book of the month was, your least favorite book, if you have one, and if you have a favorite book. And also, did you enjoy what you read? How many books did you read? I want to know all this shit in the comments down below. I always love knowing all this stuff. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.